Good morning, everybody. As you notice, it is morning, but it is light out because I am off today, so I don't have to vlog on my way to work at 4:45 in the morning. Anyway, so here's a story. Again, my channel is named Bullying Affects Lives because it's not just a narcissistic channel, it's just about toxic people or just people who do crappy things to you. And this is my venting. And if you have a similar story, then please comment down below, or hopefully this helps you to know you're not alone. So here's a story. My husband's parents are decent people. I mean, but again, with his family, in-laws are not important, so I don't really rate. They're not mean to me in any way, but they just don't care. So you're like, oh. But what surprised me is the stunt they pulled on my husband, and he didn't say anything, and I'm like, you really need to say something. This is not cool. So unless I'm just being overly sensitive because I come from a narcissistic family, so I know my guard's up a lot and I get very histrionic or upset really quick. So mind you got that going too. Okay, so long time ago, my husband used to work at a restaurant for 34 years. This restaurant had closed down now, so he was out of work, but it was well, we don't need to go into detail, but let's just say it was a hard time finding work for him. He was older now, and a lot of the places where we live, they were looking for more trendy looking people, and we're too old, I guess you would say. So he finally found a place, and this place didn't have a connection with his restaurant, but they were they were a chain, and one was down the street from the restaurant he used to work at. And it was like a change of ownership, like the in-laws and the daughter and her husband took over, and he was very shady. But we were just excited that he got a job. Like, oh my God, you got a job, yay, So he hired him, but it was just kind of weird the way he hired him. Like he wanted him to give him the recipes for the restaurant he currently was working at that was closing down. He was looking at his paycheck to pretty much pay him the exact same, even though he was now going to be a manager of the restaurant. He didn't train him and just threw him on the floor, and see, the problem was that the restaurant he used to work at was very old school, like a old-fashioned cash register. They didn't have a POS system, and this place did. And so my husband was lost. He didn't learn computers at the time he should have, and he's very archaic in his knowledge of computers, so it's hard to just jump right onto a POS system and go, I know what I'm doing. So no training at all. Worked 11 hours a day, if not 12 hours in shifts, with maybe 1/2 hour lunch if he was lucky. Only had one day off, and he was stressed out. And the guy, as we found out, because he had a chain, the restaurant that he was working at, he was closing down that chain and reopening it to a whole nother restaurant that ended up being a trendy tapas type restaurant, and it did serve seafood. The other place was just Italian. So it was kind of weird, like, why do you want all the recipes from this, this restaurant that my husband currently used to work at was a seafood restaurant. And he also had hired another manager from another seafood restaurant. So for me, I'm like, why is he asking about these homemade family recipes when this place is an Italian restaurant? Like, it just sounded so weird to me. And then go figure out, when my husband finally, he quit, and he ended like, I can't do this. And I'm like, I don't blame you, and just, this place is like, there's something shady about it. And he closed out with the restaurant that was closing down. He went back there just to do the last 2 weeks there and say his goodbyes, and then went on unemployment. And then we found out, oh, look, apparently this restaurant this Italian restaurant, the guy purposely, he closed it down and then reopened it as that trendy place. And, like I said, it was serving all these things. So he wasn't planning to keep my husband at all. He was just going to steal all the recipes and then, away with you. That's why I wasn't training him. There was just a whole shady thing going down. I'm like, man, that guy, wow. But it doesn't surprise me for that area that I lived at. That's how people think. They don't care about other people. They just think for themselves, and they're greedy, arrogant, greedy, narcissistic people. And I just couldn't handle it. I'm like, I can't believe people are like that. That's why we moved. That's the huge reason, because people are so much nicer where we live now. Authentically nice. Anyway, so that's that. I was very bitter about how that whole thing went down because I just can't stand shade. I'm like, I can't stand. How do you sleep at night? Like, I don't get how people can be. All right, so fast forward Christmas time, and his parents clearly know what happened. Like, because he's always either, now that we're out of state, he calls his mom and dad once, twice a week, like all the time. All right, sorry about that. The dogs were let outside, and I'm like, dude, trying to tell a story, and I don't want the dogs barking. So, okay, the dogs are back in. Okay, back to my story. All right, so come Christmas time, right? And like I said, my husband's mom and dad know the whole story and what they did, and here my husband's back on unemployment. We're just barely, well, I mean, I'm very cheap with my money, so thank God we made it just fine. But it's scary because nobody was hiring him except that place. I'm like, is that all you can get? Holy crap, we're screwed, man. And I'm like, trying to up my job, add more clients to my cleaning job. So, and I'm cleaning for strangers at this point. I'm like, oh, this is freaking me out. Like, this is the part where I've never hit rock bottom in parts of having to rely on people for stuff. That scared the crap out of me because I've always like, save your money, don't rely on anybody, don't be in the mercy of people. But I was at that point where I'm like, I have to be in the mercy of cleaning for people I don't know, and I don't know what I'm going into. You hear all these like crazy housekeeping stories, and I've gone into some scary homes, like scary. So anyway, that's neither here nor there, but just knowing that's where we were, stressed and hoping that he would find work. And his parents knew this whole entire thing, how that Italian restaurant treated him, the whole thing. Okay, so here's the story, and you tell me what you think about this. Come Christmas time, his mom and dad have Christmas at their house, Christmas Eve dinner at their house. Guess who they have cater their Christmas dinner from? You're right, that Italian restaurant, because they still had that other chain, because I said there was multiple ones. The one by the restaurant that my husband used to work at, that one was still open. So they had closed the other one in another city for that trendy one, but that one was still going strong. And they catered, of all places, that place. Same company. Same dude owning it. Wow. I mean, I'm like, do I eat this? Or like, I just felt like, I don't know, I just couldn't believe it. I mean, and when I was at her house prior to Christmas Eve, just to visit, and she was talking about, what to bring, hey, you bring this and you bring that, kind of thing for food. And she's like, yeah, I'm going to cater from blah, blah, blah. And she had a smirk on her face, and I didn't know what to say. I'm like, you're effing kidding me, right? You're seriously... There's plenty of places. We're not living in the boonies here. There's a lot of other places you could have bought from. You could even bought a lasagna from frickin' Costco that's just as good. Are you frickin' kidding me? Wow. And till this day, they were just out here last year, right after Christmas they came out, and his dad's like, oh, I had blah, blah, blah at the, I went to blah, blah, blah to have a lunch. I'm like, why do I care that you went out to eat at that place? Like, you don't tell me you went to In-N-Out. You didn't tell me you went to McDonald's, but you had to tell us that you went there. Why? Why? Like, I'm thinking, your mom and dad are nice, but I'm like, are they? Are they? Like, who does that? I don't know, what are your guys' thoughts? Am I just being overly sensitive, or is that pretty shitty? Anyway, I'll talk to you guys later.